the audience is everything. I mean, I learned that from Gene Schwartz. He says that copywriters and marketers don't create desire. The desire is already in the marketplace. You have to like hone it and find it. And
all right, welcome to Founders Go Naked. Today I have a very special guest who I've been trying to get on this podcast for like months, and finally he's here. And I'm talking about the great Brian Kurtz. So Brian, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Terence. It's been I've been traveling a lot. I haven't been avoiding you, I swear. You're one of my favorite people. I know you just wrote a book, and I think I endorsed it, and I love what you do. You've been in my Titans Accelerator mastermind, I think, almost from the beginning.
Almost
which says
from
a lot, given where you live and where I live. It's not as convenient, and yet you stayed a member for so long, and I admire the loyalty and the support, and I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Brian. So, Brian, I mean, that we've been there for like 5 years, and I think I took a little 3 or 4 month vacation in between.
Right. You're
otherwise,
entitled.
I've been part of the group. Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know Brian Kurtz, Brian has been in marketing for over 40 years. He has been in boardroom. He was one of the business builders there, and he's worked with some of the biggest names in copywriting and marketing history. Those that today's marketers will deem to be legends,
or they don't know who they are.
Or they don't know who they are.
Who they are, right?
Right. So, Brian, name me some of those legends that you worked with.
Well, going back, obviously my ultimate mentor was the guy who founded Boardroom, Marty Edelston, and he might not be known unless you're in my online family and you read my blog every week. You wouldn't probably know who Marty is. Amazing entrepreneur, amazing mentor, teacher, and he taught by showing and not telling, which was always the best, right? It's an excuse in a way, because he never told me what to do. He did his thing, and I had to like emulate what he was doing. But those mentors are great. But then Gene Schwartz, the author of Breakthrough Advertising, some people think that he never existed, but he's a ghost or something. And copywriters and marketers today know all about Gene because I keep his name alive. I republished Breakthrough Advertising, which was written in 1966. I was 8 years old at the time, so I wasn't even, there are people that are older than me, right? But Gene Schwartz, and then in the copywriting world, Gary Bencivenga and Jim Rutz, and just amazing legends of copywriting. And I'm not going to say I got lucky, but being with Marty, Marty at Boardroom ran what I call a learning organization. So he always went to the outside for the best brains. I mean, he knew he was smart, but, he was never the smartest guy in the room. In Titans Accelerator, we're on a screen. I say, and you have the T-shirt and the mug probably that says if you're the smartest person on the screen, you're on the wrong screen. And so or if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so it's really important to surround yourself with people smarter than you, have more wisdom than you. The interesting thing about that, which somewhat troubling, but worth it, is that when I was like in my 20s and 30s, I gravitated to the 70 and 80-year-olds who were still around because, they had all the wisdom. People like, actually he wasn't that old, but like a guy like Joe Sugarman, a guy like Jay Abraham, who's still alive, Dan Kennedy, who's still alive. They're not that much older than me, but they were a bit older than me. And, but then I just gravitated to them because they had all the wisdom. And the problem is now that I'm 66 years old, if you do the math, if they were 70 when I was 20, they're dead. And so, just the math, longevity tables and actuarial tables will tell you that. But the interesting thing is that they live on in my world. You have my book Overdeliver, which I talk about a lot about, standing on the shoulders of giants. Some people say I give other people too much credit for my career. I'm fine with that. I don't need to be told how great I am. I don't need to be told. And there are people listening now who don't even know who I am. You have a younger audience possibly because you're young and vibrant, and I'm old and crotchety. And
not that much younger.
Oh, okay. You look a lot younger.
just for the record,
Okay. But it's sort of like, I feel like having those mentors, those people in your past, it's not to live in the past. It's not for
Mm.
nostalgia. It's not just for the good old days. It's more about, what wisdom have you accumulated? And I always say that, when you say I have over 40 years experience, it's not 1 year's experience for 40 years. It's 40 years
Yeah,
of cumulative experience. That's the difference. And I'm not
true.
saying I'm better at it than someone else. I'm not. But I've always like taken each year and each piece of wisdom and lapped it on and made it like 1 + 1 = 3, 1 + 1 = 3, 1 + 1 = 3.
Mm.
And the ultimate, result of that is that I have, 43, 44 years of cumulative wisdom, accumulated
Mm.
and cumulative wisdom, which is what it's all about. It's like compound interest on a bank account. You have to continue to compound it.
Mm.
And, that's why my mentors are so important to me. And, when it's funny, when someone calls me an OG, an original gangster,
Yeah.
I don't ask for people to call me that, or someone calls me their mentor. I think about it first. I think about, okay, I take original gangster as a compliment, but I also take it as I had my own original gangsters, and I write about them all the time. So I'm paying it forward with that. But I take
Yeah.
it as a real compliment when someone calls me an
Mm.
original gangster. But when they call me a mentor, and I've earned it, like they're not just calling me a mentor because, I did them a favor or something like that, but they really have learned from me. That's the ultimate compliment that I can
Mm.
get. And so
Mm.
I always would, and I've spent my whole career telling my mentors they're my mentors too.
Mm.
So, and it's not the same thing as like when you get an email. I get emails often, and people will say, Brian, will you be my mentor? And I say it doesn't work like that. You don't choose your mentors; they choose you. And I have a bunch of
Mm.
stories about how, I mean, you're a good example. I mean, you reached out to me 5, 6
Mhm.
years ago. You were newer in the
Mhm.
business than you are now. You were
Yep.
doing some new things. You didn't ask me for anything because that would be an ask from nowhere. I call it an ask from
Mhm.
nowhere. But but
Mhm.
you were inquisitive. You were enthusiastic. You were
Mm.
you were contributing to me in some way. And
Mm.
fast forward 5, 6 years later, hopefully I can contribute to you today, and hopefully I contributed to you in our group. But that's the way. And I don't know. I'm not saying you should call me a mentor either, but I'm just
Mm.
saying that that's how you find mentors. They choose you. Like whether you like it or not, I've chosen
Yeah.
you to some
Yeah.
degree, and it's because of how you put yourself out there to me and to
Mm.
everybody else. So there's a way
Mm.
of being, I guess, to be able
Mm.
to have people choose you. And I'll go all the way back. My first name I mentioned, not Marty, but Gene Schwartz. So Gene
Mm.
Schwartz, I mean, he had no business being my mentor. I mean, he was like one of the
Mm.
top copywriters in the world. He was an
Yeah.
author. Now we were using him as a copywriter at Boardroom, so that was lucky for me. I stepped in shit there. But
Yeah.
what happened was I saw that he needed help in his list selection for his publishing business. And I
Mm.
stepped up and I said, "Hey, Gene, I see your list broker is horrible. They don't know what lists you should be
Mm.
using. They don't know how to do the selections on the outside lists. I can do that for you. No charge. I wasn't
Mm.
going to charge him, of course.
Mhm.
Um, and so I did his list planning for him, for free,
Mm.
not expecting
Mm.
anything in return. That's what I talk about in
Mm.
overdeliver, the 100-0 thing, where you just contribute 100% with no expectation of a return. What did I get in return? I got a mentor of
Mm.
mentors, one of the top people of all time, who
Yeah.
invited me to his house for lunch on a monthly basis to just
That's cool.
shoot the shit. Yeah. So I'm not saying that happens that way all the time either, but you
Mm.
have to contribute to connect. And in chapter
Mm.
10 of Over Deliver, the chapter is called Playing the Long Game. And it's a
Mm.
series of situations in my career where stuff like that happened. And I think that, I start the chapter with, I hate the word networking because I was known as a networker in the business. And I hate that word because it kind of implies, oh, he's a networker. He's got the most Facebook friends. He's all over social media. He shakes hands with everybody at every conference, and he's just going on from one to the other. And
Yeah.
that's not who I am. I like to go deep as opposed to
Mm.
wide. And so, I mean, I have gone wider in my career. I mean, after 40 years, I've accumulated a lot of people. Remember,
Yeah.
lists are people too. And so my list is an online family because I've accumulated a lot of people, but I try to go deep with them, even people who are in my online family who, if they write to me off one of my blog posts, I like to engage with them and see what they're about if I have time. And
Mm.
so it's the idea of going deep as opposed to wide. It's the idea of contributing to connect instead of networking.
Hmm.
And so going back to your original question, you can say one question, I'm off on a tangent. I'm a tangent waiting to happen, but I just love this business. I love, speaking to people like you about the business and about my career, because I think there are some things that people can take from my career and adapt them in some way. I'm not saying be like
Mm.
me. I'm just saying adapt some things that I've had success with.
Mm.
I have a track record of, 40 some odd years, and it's worked pretty well. I have,
Yeah.
uh, I think it's a pretty good model to look at anyway. So that's the
Yeah.
only reason why I bring it up. And so this idea of having mentors, having teachers, having people to learn from on a regular basis is probably the most important thing that anyone can do. And it doesn't happen immediately. It's not an easy button. It took years and years, decades to develop that I call it relationship capital. That's what Jay Abraham calls it. He calls it relationship capital. So you take
Mm.
all of your relationships and put them in a bank account, and it's the most valuable account
Yep.
you'll ever have, right? So
Yeah,
yes,
true.
you asked me one question. You said name a few people, and I went off on a tangent, but I apologize.
No, that was great. And I guess, Brian, since you've kind of like, in a way, you're kind of like passing the torch down from your OGs. You've become the OG, and now you're passing it to us younger people to carry on that torch in a way.
I've been writing about that a lot. I call them the NGs, the new gangs. You're an NG. I mean, whether you
The
like it or not,
NGs.
you're an
Yeah,
NG.
the NGs. I like
And
it.
and the NGs have to. I define them. There are like some characteristics that an NG needs to have. One is not live in the past, but have respect for the past. Have respect for the original source of
Mm.
everything. Don't take credit for something
Mm.
that you didn't invent. You can take credit for how you innovated on an invention or a technology, but don't take credit when you don't deserve
Yeah.
it. And most people don't deserve credit. They
Yep.
deserve innovation credits, not invention credits. And they're very different. And when you
True.
say I invented something, I think you're like crossing over a line, because stuff was invented.
Mm.
I mean, everything in marketing today is based on principles of direct response that go back hundreds of years. And
Yeah.
especially, if you go back even to the 1950s and 60s, the madmen of advertising and how
Mm.
they kind of got out of, like, they were kind of sick of this general advertising of like image advertising, and they wanted to get an ROI, or return on investment, on all of their advertising. And that's when direct response marketing was born. I mean, it was actionable advertising. It
Mm.
was measurable advertising. In fact, my first book, The Advertising Solution, which you definitely have because that was for your third year renewal in
Yep.
Titans Accelerator.
Yep.
But The Advertising Solution, Craig Simpson, who's a direct mail savant, a good friend of mine, he brought me in on the book, and we profiled six madmen, six like advertising guys from mostly the
Mm.
60s and 70s, but a couple of them are from the 1930s, like Claude Hopkins. And so these six
Yeah.
legends, they were basically general advertising guys trapped. Well, they were direct response guys. They were guys who wanted measurable
Yeah.
advertising, but they couldn't get to it because the advertising was all about Madison Avenue in the 60s and 70s. And it was, just
Mm.
image advertising with no accountability, no measurability. And these six guys like broke the
Right.
mold. And so it was a very important book for us to write, and it kind of got me
Mm.
motivated to write Over Deliver, which is all my book. But The Advertising Solution was a great entry into this whole idea of where do babies come from? Where do all the principles that we follow today, like RFM, recency, frequency, monetary value, which is, I have a whole chapter in my book about that.
Mm.
Where does the concept of lifetime value and how much you can lose on your first order to make it back on your second or third order? Where is, the idea of, and these are timeless. Like I call it the 41-39-20 rule, which is, list, offer, creative, and messaging. And, it's actually the 40-40-20 rule, which says that any direct marketing campaign depends 40% on the list, 40% on the offer, and 20% on the creative. That doesn't mean the creative is half as important. And what it does mean also is I made it the 41-39-20 rule. Didn't invent it. I innovated on the 40-40-20 rule to prove that the list is the most important, your audience, the media you're buying. If you're buying the wrong media and you have the best offer and the best creative, you get 0 orders. But the reverse is not true. If you have the perfect audience and you have a mediocre offer and mediocre creative, you'll make some money. Not as much as you can if you have all 3 of those things working on in sync with each other. But it's fascinating to me that that's a mistake that a lot of marketers make today. They think that they have a great offer and creative, and they don't worry as much about the audience. The audience is everything. The audience, I mean, I learned that from Gene Schwartz. He says that, copywriters and marketers don't create desire. The desire is already in the marketplace. You have to hone it and find it. And it may not be what you intend to sell in the first place. The audience is going to tell you, it's what they need, not what you want to do. And that's a classic mistake of inventors and entrepreneurs who think they have, the best idea of all time, and it's not been tested. It's not been put out into the marketplace in any way, so that, they end up squandering a lot of time and money on products and services that have no audience. Audience is the number one.
So do you think that still applies in today's world where you can use Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all that stuff, and they say, oh, well, you let the algorithm just do the targeting. You just worry about the creative and the offer. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think you can, as I said, you can get away a little bit with that. But I think to really have a business, as opposed to having a product or a promotion. See, a product is not a business. A promotion is not a business. To build a business, you need foundational tools and the foundational philosophy of, audience and lists before offer and creative. So I think that, when you talk about the algorithms of Facebook, the algorithms are one thing, but, you still can do lookalike models and do segmentation, and that's only going to improve it. And that's about segmenting the audience. So I think that what I learned in doing direct mail, because I'm old enough to have marketed in a world where there was no internet, there was no email, there was no Facebook. So, in fact, chapter 3 of Overdeliver is titled How Paying Postage Made Me a Better Marketer. And the discipline that we had to have when we were, doing direct mail, where you're paying for postage and printing on every piece of mail that went out, you had to be sure the targeting. I mean, it's true that a 2% response rate could make you millions of dollars. It's true. So you say, what happened to you're still wasting 98%, but it's not, but 2%, to get to 2% took an incredible amount of discipline. And that's with incredible precise list segmentation and everything that goes into putting together a direct mail campaign. And I'm not endorsing direct mail for all marketers. I do endorse a multi-channel approach, one that includes offline and online marketing. I think it's a mistake for somebody who's online to not pursue something offline to complement online and using physical product. That's a big mistake I think marketers make today too, because things like offline marketing, whether it's print advertising, direct mail, TV and radio, becomes a differentiator because everybody's just on Facebook, LinkedIn, email, which is all important. Obviously, it's cheaper, it's easier, but you know what? Having a multi-channel approach will differentiate you, quickly and efficiently. You got to know what you're doing. I always say that doing direct mail is like making sushi at home. You can do it, but I'm not making sushi at home. It's too complicated for me. But the sushi makers, the direct mail experts, can do it for you. But you use the same principles that you use online. But the offline principles came first. So, I
Mm,
have a section in overdeliver. It's like O to O to O, online to offline to online to offline. And the idea of
mm,
toggling between online and offline media is really one of the keys to creating a business. And again, not just a product or a promotion. This idea that, you have a winning promotion and you run it everywhere on Facebook and ClickBank and wherever,
mm,
that's not a business. I mean, you can make money,
mm,
but creating a business in direct response means multiple products, means
mm,
thinking about the second and third product when you're marketing the first. The idea of renewals and continuity and built-in lifetime value. That's how you create a business as opposed to
mm,
just a series of one-shots. And I think
mm,
that that's a lesson that I teach all the time. I think it's so basic, and yet some people listen to it. Maybe some people listen to this podcast might have just a light bulb might have just gone off. Some of them might say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and they might have shut off already. So I don't know. But I think that if you're listening out there, just think about these concepts of differentiation, becoming a specialty and not a commodity, selling on things other than
mm,
your price. All of those things are basically building a business and not just a series of products or promotions.
mm. So, Brian, how do you know if someone's building a business versus just, trying to make a quick buck? I mean, some people are in business and they're just doing promotions and they don't realize they're actually not building a business. Is there a litmus test that you have?
That's a good question. First of all, it's not mandatory. I mean, you don't have to build a business. You can just build, a product or a promotion and make a lot of money and move on from there. A lot of people
Yeah.
when I got into the infomercial business on TV in the mid 2000s, I remember there were people there that the infomercial business was it could be a one-hit wonder. They come up with the
Mm,
product, they blow it out, then they move
mhm,
it to retail, and they make millions and millions of dollars with no intention of creating a second product, or they don't even know what the second product's going to be. And that can
mm,
work to accumulate some cash. But
mm,
I think the litmus test would be that are you, I'm not saying you have to make 5 and 10 year plans either. I don't really go for that
mm,
as well. I think what you want to
mm,
do is look at your career and your business in quarters, 90-day sprints. And I
mm,
learned that from Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, who's the top
mm,
coach for entrepreneurs in the world. And he teaches basically go quarter to quarter with 5 or 6 initiatives that you want to produce. It may not be the full product launch. It may not be the full thing that you want to get done, but you chunk it down and just get as much done as you can in that quarter, but you target that. At the end of the quarter, you celebrate what you
mm,
accomplished and then go on to the next quarter with 5 or 6 initiatives. If you do it that way,
mm,
it's not a litmus test per se, but that was a good question, Terence. But it's sort of like then
mm,
you know that you're building something. You're not just doing a series of one
mm,
shots. And again, you can do a series of one shots. It's in fact at Boardroom, I'm preaching this now, but at Boardroom we had a bunch of $39 products. We had $39 books. We had
mhm,
$39 newsletter subscriptions. Now it's true that
mhm,
some of the books had renewals in them. They were annual books, and they were able to renew year to year. The
mm,
subscriptions also had renewals. After you had it for a year, you
mm,
renew the second year. So there was a built-in lifetime value, as it were. But we were really building.
mm,
I mean, I think I did a panel once with a bunch of great copywriters who had written for me at Boardroom, and the title was,
mm,
$1 billion worth of business, $39 at a time, which is not a great way to run a business when you think about it. But we were able to do that at
mhm,
Boardroom because of the wide
mm,
range of products that were all related to the products that were the core products. So, the key is another
mm,
litmus test is, having a hero product. So you have that one product that
mm,
you think so that's the product as a business, but you have the hero product that leads the way, and then everything becomes an offshoot.
mm,
A good example in today's world,
mhm.
people are familiar with Jeff Walker and Product Launch Formula. Product
Yep.
Launch Formula is the hero product for Jeff, but he's got workshops, he's got masterminds, he's got, higher ticket
Mm,
things that come off it. So, and it's been the same
Mm,
hero product for years. So you could say, oh, his business is a
mm,
product. It's not. Not. It's got a hero
mm,
product at the center, but it's got all the offshoots.
mm,
And that's where you always have to be on alert for what's the next, what's the
mm,
next big thing for you as an offshoot. So
mm,
that's I hopefully I answered the question, but it's sort of like, again, you don't have to build a business. You can build products and you can build promotions. But I think if you look at it, and I think the way I would look at it is 90-day sprints. Always think about
mhm,
offshoots that you could, and also charge a higher price. Like at Boardroom, I never got into ascension models, for example. I mean, it was the 1980s,
mm,
I never had like
mm,
$1,500 courses and, $2,000
mm,
software. It was always $39 on $39 on $39. And it's no way to run a business, believe me. It worked for us in a different time, in a
mm,
different marketing atmosphere. But I do think that the idea
mm,
of ascension models is super important. The idea of, you start with the
mm,
$47 product, then you go to the $1,000 product, then you go to the $1,500 product, and you need to build it not just on price, but on the benefits for the
mm,
person, and you have to survey them. I mean, I'm fascinated with someone like Ryan Levesque, who I followed his career from the beginning, who has his quiz funnels, if
mm,
people aren't familiar with them. And all
mhm.
that is like segmenting your list to find out what they want next. And we did that at Boardroom
Yep.
with concept testing, which I talk about in my book, Overdeliver, about how you can sell
Mhm.
the next product to the same audience by surveying them, asking them,
Mm,
and your best customers will help
mm,
you with that. You don't have to guess. And
mm,
that tells me that that's a litmus test that you running a business, and not just because you're looking for the next product, you're looking for the next service, you're looking for the next rung on the ladder, but you're doing it intelligently
mm.
through research and surveying. So I think that's where that separates the men from the boys, or the women from the girls,
Yeah.
in terms of like building a business for. In fact, the subtitle of Overdeliver is "Build a Business for a Lifetime, Playing the Long Game in Direct Response Marketing." That's a premise that I live
Yeah.
by. Everybody doesn't have to live by that premise. It's
Yeah.
fine if you don't. But if
Mm,
you want to live by that premise,
mm.
some of the ways to do it.
So, Brian, one of the things that I noticed, correct me if I'm wrong, but Boardroom was based on like did you have a bunch of researchers coming up with information, or did you have like a personality behind that information? How was it like?
Yeah, it was an interesting situation because Boardroom, which the big newsletter became Bottom Line Personal. So Boardroom was the newsletter that Marty started the business with, which was how to help small
Yep.
businesses run their business. But we started figuring out that
Hmm.
those people needed, I'll call it the executive at home information. So we
Mm,
got
hmm.
into like the consumer side of the businessman or the businesswoman. And so Bottom Line Personal
Mm,
was our became our flagship newsletter at a company called Boardroom. And the company actually
mm,
switched branding after that. We became Bottom Line Publications,
mm,
Bottom Line Information. So Bottom Line Personal was
mm,
was the lead newsletter. We got into health information. We always had tax
hmm.
information. So what we did
Mm,
was we didn't have one expert. We always went out to a series of experts. We had
mm,
panels of experts in health, in finance, in taxes, in business development, in
mm,
human resources, everything. So Marty was not an expert in any one thing, but he was the most curious man on the
mm,
planet. And you'd say, well, that doesn't qualify you
mm,
for anything, right? Being just curious. Well, in Marty's case, it did,
mhm.
because he became what I call the bloodhound. And if you see commercials today and you hear them on the radio, what they don't want you to know, and what
Mm,
I'm not saying we invented that, because I don't want to claim we invented anything, but we were doing that in the
mm.
early 1980s. And we used to have like
Yeah.
these headlines of what your accountant doesn't want you to know, what your lawyer doesn't want you to know, what your doctor doesn't want you to know. And we had other variations of that. And so Marty in the promotions became the watchdog, the bloodhound. He was watching out for you. And it's an interesting approach, which a lot of people have used over the years. We didn't invent that, but we perfected it. We perfected the bloodhound approach because we didn't have any one expert. A lot of our competition at the time in the newsletter business, one of them was Agora, who a lot of people know, another company, Phillips Publishing, and many others, had usually a guru. So they had a guru doctor, a guru financial expert, and then they sold products off of that guru. Yeah. We didn't have that. And the copywriters that we used found it a little frustrating because it's easier to focus in on a guru. But when they started focusing in on the bloodhound, on Marty, it became a pretty powerful approach, which said, hey, I'm Marty Edelston. I'm just like you. I hate being taken advantage of. I hate, how the world works. And the idea of inside information and secrets became a premise for us that we literally took to the bank. And so we had a book called The Book of Inside Information, which was, basically the greatest hits of our newsletters in 500 pages, indexed by topic, health, finance, taxes, and written by experts. So our editorial staff were basically curators and interviewers of the best experts in the world. And so the story meetings would be like, let's go, find the expert on thyroid cancer and get an article on that. And so it was a different approach. It wasn't like one person's opinion. Now, Marty's opinion comes through, but not like a guru, but as a bloodhound. So it was an interesting approach and one that people have used. And if you don't have a guru, like some people say, I can't do a newsletter because I don't have a guru. I don't have that singular voice. It's easier to write with a singular voice. I agree. I mean, boardrooms, publications were harder for the copywriters to get their arms around. But when they got their arms around it, it was powerful stuff. It was really good copy. One of my favorite promotions was written by a guy named Eric Betwell, who was one of our top copywriters. And it was a magalog, so it looked like a magazine, but it was actually a promotion for a book. And the book title was The Big Black Book, kind of like the Book of Inside Information. And the cover said 12 smiling swindlers, 12 smiling swindlers. And the 12 smiling swindlers are your accountant, your lawyer, your financial advisor, your tax consultant. And so the car repairman, it was your real estate agent. Everybody's a swindler. And talk about like creating a villain in copy. I mean, that's always been a premise of copywriting. You got to have a villain, whether it's an industry or someone who is a particular villain. We had villains all over the place, and they were just the people that were around consumers all the time, trying to take advantage of them. And there's Marty, the protector. So it was powerful. It's some of the best promotion. Right. And then we went a little more positive when we went into TV with an infomercial. We used the Treasury of Health Secrets, which was our health stuff greatest hits. And in the Treasury of Health Secrets, the premise of that was the greatest medical team ever assembled. So it wasn't smiling swindlers. We went positive. You can go positive or negative, right? And so it's just a different approach. And so the greatest medical team ever assembled, we were an infomercial, and we would interview the doctors themselves on screen. This guy from Harvard, and this guy from MIT, and this guy from Stanford, and this Nobel Prize winner. And we had like little snippets of all of them in the show. Talk about credibility and proof elements. Gary Bencivenga, one of the great copywriters of all time, talks about proof elements. These were ultimate proof elements of the value of the content in the book. And we had all of these amazing experts, and they weren't even being interviewed. They were just like showing up on screen because our producer went all over the country to film them with their medical school behind them. Talk about credibility and proof elements, and basically talking about the item that they wrote in the book. So there's a guy, who has identified a new gene for Alzheimer's, and he's talking like, I developed this and this and this, and it's in the book. So
Mm.
It was a incredible learning experience, but it also made us a lot of money. I mean, I'd say the infomercial business alone accounted for over $200 million just in infomercial sales of books, and then an additional 100 million
Wow.
in all the ancillary from going online and back to direct mail with the stuff from the infomercial. Again, O to O to O. We moved,
Mm.
we moved
Mm.
online on display advertising. We had direct mail. We had TV. Talk about a multi-channel marketing approach. I outlined the whole
Mm.
program inside my book. So, but yeah, it was an amazing
Wow.
time.
Yeah, the reason I asked Brian is because, like, I see most infopreneurs nowadays, they are creating their own information, spending months creating a course, and bottom line is they may not even be the best people to do it because there's probably better experts out there. Uh,
Yeah.
is that model, do you think, that boardroom creator, is that replicable in today's world, do you think?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it depends. I mean, if you really are an expert in something very precise, yeah, I mean, you probably should just go for it
Mm.
on your own, assuming there's desire in the marketplace for it. But I think that it's sort of like the
Mm.
idea of make or buy. It's always a decision always a business decision whether to make or buy. I mean, there are underpromoted, underutilized assets everywhere. So let's say
Mm.
you want to you want to develop a software for, I'll make it up, like for list segmentation, and you
Mhm.
know somebody who's developed it, hasn't marketed it, and you
Mm.
can partner with them as opposed get a head start. You might want to revise it a little bit, but I think the idea
Mm.
of collaboration and buying as opposed to making it from scratch is always on the table. It's always
Mm.
like it's always something that, the make or buy, and the idea of like buy, and the thing is, white labeling has been going on forever.
Mm.
You can, I mean, in the supplement business, you can have like a customized CoQ10 supplement or a
Yep.
customized fish oil. It's not customized. It's from a manufacturer who's manufacturing
Mm.
it for a lot of different people, and you're putting your label on it. And then it's
Yep.
all about the promotion of how to differentiate. Now, the difference is if you can really differentiate it, like if you can go to a supplier that's only supplying to you, and there's an
Mm.
ingredient. I'm using supplements as an example here, but it's true in
Mhm.
any industry. And
Mm.
they have an ingredient that no one else has in their CoQ10
Mm.
or something like that. There was something that
Mm.
we got into a supplement at Boardroom. It was called Mito Forte or something. It was a joint remedy. Not you
Right.
couldn't make claims, but it would alleviate joint pain. And we found
Mhm.
out there was an ingredient that could only be found. It was true. It was You can't make this shit up. If you make it up, then you're lying,
Mm.
and that's not good. But we actually
Mhm.
found out there was an ingredient that could only be found in a part of Africa. I forget where it was, like
Mm.
Sudan, somewhere, Nigeria maybe, in
Mhm.
somewhere in Africa, in these like expansive caves where they would take it off the cave
Mm.
walls, and now you have a story,
Mm.
right? Copywriting is
Wow.
storytelling.
Yeah.
And so now you've got like a joint medication. There are tons of them out there. And you have a
Mm.
differentiator that says we have the ingredient. Is that ingredient going to be the thing that's going to alleviate all your joint pain? I don't know. I mean, but it is an ingredient. It's been tested. Some doctors tested it in a lab and said it looks like there's some positive results on this. I mean, you have to be
Mm.
careful. Your copy still has to be compliant when you're writing about it.
Mhm.
But I use that as an example of where, the make or buy, you can just buy, the joint pain thing, put your label on it and do it that way and just have a great
Mm.
copywriter differentiate it. Or maybe there's a
Mm.
differentiator with somebody who's developed the product already, hasn't marketed it at all, and really has a better mousetrap. They have something that
Yeah.
is is unique. And so
Mm.
sometimes, and that's why research in terms of product development, and that's why surveying is so important. It's why being connected in the marketplace, not networking, but contributing to the industry. Like if you're in the supplement business and you're constantly contributing your expertise, whether in marketing, copywriting, whatever, you will connect with people that you'll find them and go, wow, this guy or this woman developed this. They have no idea that they're sitting on something that I could sell. They can't sell it because they don't know how to sell, but they've got the product. That's a perfect situation where you buy and not make it yourself. So, I mean, I've been a little broad here, but hopefully I've made the point of the make or buy decision should be front lobe in your brain. It should be always thinking about it, because you don't have to invent everything. And I say in overdeliver, I didn't invent anything in my entire career. And yet I think I've innovated and connected the dots often enough to create incredibly successful marketing campaigns without inventing anything, because I bought everything around the corner. I bought everything that I needed to, and you put together a team. The story of the infomercial was interesting because, I had the product, the book, but I needed a host. I needed a premise. I needed a producer. I needed media buying. I needed all the different things that go into it. I wasn't going to do all that from scratch. I had all the experts that I could find to go. I had been accumulating experts. I always wanted to be on TV with our products. I knew all the experts when I got the idea of how to price it and how to position it. Once I had that, I was off to the races, because I knew all the people that I could go to. So I basically I didn't make anything. In fact, we already had the book made, basically. We just repositioned it. We changed the design on the book so it would look better for TV and not just for direct mail. But it was really, it was a make and buy decision. But I think anything today could be part make, part buy, all make. Depends on the product, depends on how you're positioning it, and depends on what kind of collaborators you can find and partners you can find.
That's such a good lesson on business, of collaborating. So let's talk a little bit about, Brian, what do you see? I mean, you've been in marketing for 40 years. What do you see some of today's marketers are kind of like missing out on that, the marketers of yesteryears were doing really well, and today's marketers are missing out on? I mean, we talked about the list a little bit, but is there anything else that we're missing out on today?
Yeah, I don't like to sit and sort of lecture all the new whippersnappers, and because then I'm grandpa at the picnic. You get off of my lawn. I don't want to play that role, because that's not who I am. But I will say that I think that a lot of marketers today, it's easy to hang out a shingle. It's easy to create a product. It's easy to just go on Facebook and sell something. And so I have this phrase that says, everything in marketing today, especially, is not a revenue event, but everything's a relationship event. And it sounds corny, I know, but it's really true when you think about it. And the beauty of online marketing is that it is less expensive. The barrier to entry is a lot lower than things like direct mail and print and TV and radio. So but the barrier to entry is not an excuse to be sloppy. It's not an excuse to just throw anything out there and see what sticks. So using the same discipline of what I learned in direct mail is probably the biggest thing that they can do. Also, the value of physical product. I think a lot of online marketers are missing the boat on this. Now you say, well, my audience is younger. They don't really care about physical product. Everything is digital. I maintain that I don't care. If you're a human being, you like to touch stuff. You like the tactile feel of a product. And so it's not that everything should have, a physical component to it. But, in Titan's Accelerator, even there, I do the USB once a month, just so people can get something in the mail in a plastic case that kind of solidifies their membership, and it gives them content that's not anywhere else in the membership. So there's a method to the madness there in terms of, like, it adds to the tact. It's like you can feel the offer, you can feel the product, and not just have it stored on your hard drive. And I think that, look, you could have piled up binders. I have them of courses and all the kinds of stuff that are on most people's hard drives today. But I think the thing that, that using physical product in some way to incorporate into your offer is something that, again, it's not a miss. It's not, if you don't do it, you don't do it. And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit for your offer. That's fine. But I think it can enhance your offer. It can really add a dimension that few other things can. So those are a couple of things in terms of the discipline of making sure that every message that goes out doesn't need to sell something. And in direct mail, we didn't have that luxury because we were paying postage and printing. Everything sort of had to sell. Yeah. But I think that online, you have the luxury of not having to sell on every email. Now, some people in email marketing say every email should have an offer. There's different opinions on that. I understand why, even just a super signature with an offer at the bottom is fine on every email. I don't tell people not to do that, but I think that there's a time and a place for storytelling in email. There's a time and a place for relationship building with your email. I'm talking about email now, but you can do it on Facebook. You can do it in LinkedIn. So, I'm doing a whole LinkedIn campaign now of taking pieces of my blog, my weekly blog posts, and just posting them with a couple of hashtags at the end. No real offer in most of them. They're just putting my content out there, and people are going to find me. Then I finally do a CTA, a call to action, to have them sign up, for my email list or my online family. And there's a way, it's sort of like romancing people as opposed to just hitting them, over the head all the time. And so it's a philosophy. It's not one that I say you have to follow. But I think when you're building a business for the long and playing the long game, I believe relationships trump all. Those are a couple of things.
Cool. Brian, talking about relationships, you call yourself the master of anti-selling or something like that?
The director
what do you call yourself again?
Director of Sales Prevention.
Director of Sales Prevention. Yeah. But yet you have like 3 thriving mastermind groups. Can you tell us how you built them?
Yeah, so I've got right now I only have 1, but I've had as many as 3, and I go in and out. But I think the thing is, when I left Boardroom, I had 34 years experience at that point. So I already had built up a hefty relationship capital account, and I did it all the ways that we've talked about on this podcast. So I don't have to talk about that more, but I had I was established in the business. So I did a descension model as opposed to an ascension model. Not everybody can do that. And what a descension model was is that I started with a $25,000 mastermind, live mastermind. And I put 23 people in it almost immediately. So that's $500,000 immediately. I had a $500,000 business. And it's not that easy because I had spent 34 years to get there. So it took me 34 years to get to a $500,000 business with a mastermind. Now I had successes throughout Boardroom. I was an equity partner at Boardroom. Nobody's crying for me and money. I'm fine. But so what happened was I did a descension model. So I went from the $25,000 mastermind to the $10,000 mastermind, which was like for more junior people. And now the one that you're in, Titans Accelerator, is a $2,000 mastermind. But it's all virtual, no live events. But the principle is the same. And now that I had those established, and this then flip it for most people who are listening to this to do an ascension model, you still need that low ticket initial purchase to get to even the $2,000 mastermind. And so what I did was I had access to breakthrough advertising, which I have the exclusive rights to with Gene Schwartz's wife. And so we did.
That's how I got into your mastermind group, by the way. I bought breakthrough advertising, and that's how we connected. And I'm part of the mastermind.
And also, then we got more proactive with that. We have a breakthrough advertising boot camp. So we do a 2.5 week boot camp, which anybody in Titans Accelerator in the mastermind can go for free. But we get new people to
Mm.
come into the boot camp, it's like $197. That's the low ticket, right? The
Mm-hmm.
low ticket for you. So the book is
Mm-hmm.
$125. So that was your ticket into my
Mm.
world. And eventually you join the mastermind. But the Breakthrough Advertising Bootcamp is directly related almost because it's on Zoom, just like the mastermind.
Mm.
So you get into the Breakthrough Advertising Bootcamp. We teach extensively for 2.5 weeks on 6-hour-and-a-half calls. It's in depth. And then, I am the director of sales prevention, but I still I still had a call to action, which was to join the mastermind. And then we get great people out of the boot camp into the mastermind. Then I developed something called the overdeliver boot camp. So the overdeliver boot camp
Mm.
was an idea that I took from, I expanded on an idea from Jason Fladlian, who's an amazing marketer in
Mm.
webinars, and he's just phenomenal. And he had
Mm.
this thing that he developed called an E-class. And what an E-class is, and he didn't invent that, but an E-class for him was basically most people buy books, but they don't read them. So the idea is that with a
Mm.
book, you then sell what I call the overdeliver boot camp. So for 2.5 weeks, 6 calls, 1.5 hours each, we go through the book with exercises. And Breakthrough Advertising Bootcamp is proactive, interactive. We have hot seats. We have, worksheets, homework. People look at their business and adapt it to Breakthrough Advertising. Overdeliver has a lot of things in it that they can do an RFM analysis of their list. They can create like intentional dinners, which is something that I teach in chapter 10. So basically the overdeliver boot camp going into, that's also like $197. And then we sell Titans Accelerator. That's even more direct because I'm in Breakthrough Advertising, I'm teaching Gene Schwartz's stuff. In overdeliver, I'm teaching my stuff. And I teach my stuff and how I work in the mastermind. So it's even a more direct link. But I guess the point is that even though I started with a descension model of masterminds, now the ascension model works because I have lower ticket. So I went high ticket to low ticket, and you can go either way, depending on your experience, depending on your online family and your offline family and who you can promote your stuff to. But, creating a mastermind is instant business. I mean, it's if you have stuff to offer. I think there's been a little bit of I want to say this politely. So Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, who are wonderful guys, entrepreneurs. I don't know Tony. I know Dean, and they develop like a mastermind formula where people can basically the idea is share your genius with the world, and will help you develop your own mastermind. So it's kind of bastardized the idea of exclusive masterminds and that anybody can do it. They don't promote it that way, but it ends up getting promoted that way because, it becomes a commodity. And masterminds are anything but commodities. So as far as masterminds go, there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of good ways to do it, a lot of bad ways to do it. But if you have something to share that's unique and that you have an audience that would be responsive, you can do it as a descension model, an ascension model. You can do it with low ticket products into a mastermind. That's usually the way to do it. There's no one way to do it, I guess is what I'm saying. And I just gave you the way I did it.
Yeah, and I think being part of a mastermind is quite amazing because we get access to some of the greatest minds in marketing. Like, I think we've had Jay Abraham, we've had Dan Kennedy, we've had Ryan Levex, and a whole bunch of others. Too many to name.
Yeah, the thing is,
in the past
too,
5 years.
And what I realize is that the members of the group become the stars as well. So we have like what we call Titan Spotlight. So we have outside speakers who are well known. The people in the group can always share, and they do a spotlight. We have one this week with a member who's going to talk about how she uses Instagram in her business incredibly well.
Yes.
And so that's a hands-on person who's got a skill and an innovation, and she's a member of the group. I'm not going to the outside. I don't need an expert. She is the expert. So that's one of the benefits of creating a mastermind, is that the group itself becomes the content, which is great.
Yeah, and I mean, we do have a lot of high highly intelligent and really smart marketers in the group, by the way.
Oh yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
always
Yes.
good to be hang out with them.
Yes. Yes.
So Brian, yeah, thanks for your time, and I guess we kind of hit the hour mark. So as much as I like to talk for another hour, I think we just have to wrap things up. But Brian, if people want to find out more about your mastermind, find out more about breakthrough advertising and yourself, how do they get in touch, or how do they follow you?
So there's an easy way to do it. You go to briankurtz.net, BrianKurtz.net. There's an opt-in page for my Sunday blog. I think you get a download of an interview I did with Perry Marshall, one of the great marketers of all time, and he interviews me, and that's the welcome mat into my world. You'll be part of my online family. I blog every Sunday and Wednesday with content. I don't sell a lot. I only sell educational material. If I sell someone else's educational material, I don't take affiliate commissions. So what I do is, if someone's selling something and I think it's worthwhile, I ask them to take my affiliate commission and give that as a 50% discount to my online family. So it's a nice formula for me, because I don't need the money from affiliates. It's just not part of my model. So it's a good model. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying affiliates are bad, but I don't need affiliate commission. So that's a really good way to kind of screen out the people that I want to promote and the information I want to promote. And it's all direct marketing education. It's never anything that's like, yoga or meditation, which are fine things, but they don't fit for what I'm selling and my audience. So, so that briankurtz.net is the way to get into my online family. If you want to buy my book, which I make no money on, if you don't go directly to Amazon, go to overdeliverbook.com, OVERDELIVER book.com. And on that site, there's a button, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, go buy the book, you come back to the site, opens up a new window, and you come back. And you'll see the bonuses on that site just for buying the book are incredible. Going back to where we started this conversation, Terence, in terms of my mentors, many of them are honored on that page. Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, two of my direct mail mentors, Dick Benson and Gordon Grossman, who people on this call probably never heard of, and yet they each wrote a book, which is out of print. On that site, you can get a PDF of both books. So there's like 11 bonuses, just incredible bonuses. As I said, a Dan Kennedy swipe file, a Jay Abraham course, and 19 keynote speeches that Jay Abraham gave, some videos from my Titans event in 2014. So it's just a great, the bonus, I hate to say this because it puts down my book, but it's probably the bonuses are worth more than the book. Well, it is, because the book's $25 or whatever it is. And the bonuses some of them are priceless. You can't get them anywhere else. And some are worth thousands of dollars. So, so overdeliverbook.com is another way to get into my online family. Plus, you get tons of amazing content. It'll warm you up to the kinds of stuff that I sell, that I provide for free. So overdeliverbook.com is another way to go. And on my site at briankurtz.net, I do have a tab at the top, and it's got Work With Me, which has the mastermind information. It's got a product tab where you can buy breakthrough advertising. You can buy Gene Schwartz's other book, The Brilliance Breakthrough. I have rights to that as well. A couple of swipe files from great copywriters, Jim Rutz and Bill Jamie. So I've got a lot of all educational, all copywriting and marketing resources, unique to me and my career and my world, but universally beloved people who shared their genius, and now I can share their genius with a lot of people as well. So the entry point is briankurtz.net, but there's a lot of other ways to get into my world, and I encourage all of your listeners to just get in my online family. You'll get a welcome series to my blog, and then you can read me every Sunday morning in your inbox. And
I read them every Sunday. Very thoughtful messages.
Thank you, Terence. I appreciate that from someone like you, especially. I think that the interesting thing is that I was talking about this with Jeff Walker, he's the one who invented Product Launch Formula, and we were talking about how there's such an overlap between personal development and marketing. Like personal development, like self-improvement and Tony Robbins kind of
Mm,
stuff, and
mm,
being a better person, all of that, and marketing, like tactics and techniques and all that, and marketing
mm,
philosophy. And it's a Venn diagram, and the shared area is bigger and
mm,
bigger than ever before. And so it's interesting when I write something that I has a marketing bent to it, but it's not really all marketing. And it's like the one I wrote. This past Sunday was the confidence is not arrogance, and it was almost like personal
mm,
development than marketing. I do have a marketing example in there of a copywriter who came and approached me
mm,
to write for me and stuff. But it was like I was kind of
mm,
teaching something that I don't even think is in my sweet spot, but it becomes my sweet spot because marketing and personal development are so intertwined. And so I find that, and I find the engagement with my audience, like people who email me on my weekly blogs, I get many more engagement emails on the personal development stuff that's more personal development than marketing. And yet I'm a marketer, and it's supposed to be all about
mm,
marketing. I did one on a couple of weeks
mm.
ago, Jaggering at 80, which was all about the Rolling Stones concert I went to, but also the lessons I learned there,
Yeah.
marketing lessons, but it's more personal development
Mm,
of, longevity. It's like longevity with
mm.
relevance. And is that a marketing concept? I don't know. It's like a little bit of both. And I got a lot of response to that blog post. So
Mm,
it's fascinating to me, this idea of personal development and marketing. And so, I see
mm.
myself, it's a marketing blog, but it goes beyond, because you have to. If you're writing anything in marketing, you're going to write stuff in personal development.
Brian, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. And we'll hope to have you back again in the near future again on this podcast for more juicy stuff from you.
Thank you, Terence. And I hope to see you on a accelerator call soon. And you are one of the stars of the group. So I appreciate you very much.